So everybody talks about flu, right?
Yes.
And everybody right now is worried about the bird flu, right? H5N1,
Yes.
right? Everybody's all worried about influenza.
There's a different flu every year that we're getting worried about. Yeah.
Of course. So here's the thing about influenza. Now, what we're talking about really is influenza A. There's 4. There's influenza A, influenza B, influenza C, influenza D. Many different types of influenzas. Influenza is also an RNA virus. But influenza A is the one that can cause severe disease. H5N1 is bird flu.
Right.
These letters stand for proteins. H stands for hemagglutinin. N stands for neuraminidase. When you look at influenza, the virus, it has a structure. And the way that we like to describe viruses, we say viruses have structural proteins. That is, if you were to grab, I don't know, if you look at this candle that we have on this table, right? Say this is the outside of the virus. The structural proteins would be like here on this membrane, right? And so hemagglutinin and neuraminidase are like on this membrane, okay? So everybody's like, why do I have to get flu vaccine every year? What's the point, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing about influenza, and it's actually about every organism that most people don't realize or don't think about, is these proteins are just a collection of amino acids all stacked on top of one another. It's like Legos, right? They're all stacked on top of one another. Every year, these amino acids can change a little bit. And remember, viruses and even our body, for that, our cells, they're 3-dimensional structures.
Right.
So if you change one of the amino acids, or if you change a couple of the amino acids, it changes
the structure.
Of the protein, right? And our antibodies that we generate when people are infected with a virus or people are infected with the bacteria, our body generates cells that recognize some of these structures. Our body generates antibodies that recognize some of these structures. And it's 3-dimensional, right? And so the antibody will recognize it. But if amino acid changes the way it looks, so the antibody isn't as effective at binding it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So the way I like to describe it is it's kind of like you have, who's your best friend?
I can't say that out loud.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Do you know how many people I would upset?
You have your top 20 friends. Let's say one of the names is Hillary. All right. So like Hillary drives, we'll say she drives like a Honda Civic.
Yeah. Okay.
And every time she comes to your house, you look and you see the Honda Civic and you're like excited and you're like, oh, cool, Hillary's coming in.
Come in. I got wine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. I got wine. Exactly. That's it. Right. So like if Hillary got a new car, say she got like a black Range Rover.
Okay.
And she came over to your house and she pulled up to your house and you look outside the window and you see this black Range Rover, you're like a little apprehensive. You're like, who the hell is that?
Yeah.
Like, who's this parking right in front of my window who is this?
This isn't my Hillary.
Right. So your immune system, when it's exposed to a virus that's mutated a little bit, one of the structural proteins is mutated, your immune system does the same shit. Your immune system's like,
what's going on here?
What's going on?
Yeah.
And it can over-respond and cause a bunch of white blood cells to come into this area, getting ready to fight this infection that it hasn't seen before. But then Hillary opens the door and it's just Hillary. Right? And you're like,
thank God.
Oh. But your immune system can't go back. It's already recruited this army.
Yeah.
And so it's just taking up all this space and all of your inflammatory mediators are just taking up all this space and you're coughing and you're really sick. And so that's what happens in your body, right? This is what's taking place. And these viruses are mutating. Remember during the pandemic with COVID?
Don't take me back to that.
I know, it's so terrible.
We're going to go back to that, but
I know it activated your immune system in the beginning so much that your immune system is essentially what killed you. Like it was just over responsive, right? And over congested the lung, which is a vital organ.
Right.
And that's what happens with these viruses. And as parents, how do you protect your kids? Well, there are strategies, right? There's vaccination. Vaccination is important because every year we know it's going to mutate a little bit and we can see how it's going to mutate.
Right.
And sometimes we guess with how it's going to mutate. And so we give the vaccine.
Right.
Sometimes we don't know how it's going to mutate. Like sometimes we do know because sometimes it starts in a different part of the world and we're like, oh, that's what it looks like. And then we rev
can
up
jump
the
on it.
vaccine
Right.
production. Yeah. The other thing is if your kid is sick, like probably don't send them to school to spread infection, right?
Jamie, careful what you say.
I know.
Careful.
I know.